Back to Lohmann. Lohmann on the left. 2 in a minute. Around the body, Charlie Cameron. That's why. Look at that.
Lohmann from 30 and closing. He goals. Lohmann's kicked 3 in a grand final in the first half. Back to Hipwood. He's a left footer, remember. Gets back on that left now. Lines them up. It's coming back. How did he kick that from there? They are on fire. They are up by 35 points. Off hands, maybe not, because Ashcroft has ensured that they continue to surge on. Daniher from a long way out. Rayner! Ashcroft. All the big names. Bailey to Daniher. Daniher, the final stamp on the day.
It's the Brisbane Lions Fancast back 1 week after the 2024 Premiership, and I don't know about you listening out there, but I've watched a number of replays. Patrick, I know you have as well, and I just spent the week trying to get every soundbite, video clip, read every article, absorb as much as I possibly could, because it all seems to just disappear fairly quickly, and now it's all about trade and draft and rumour and innuendo and speculation and all the rubbish that comes along with trade period. It's interesting, you know, and I guess it's a good position to be in as going for a team that's just won the Premiership. 5-6 years ago, I could not get enough of trade period and draft period. And it's like, oh, what are we going to do? How are we going to improve our list? And now it's just like, hey, can't we bask in the Premiership a little bit more? This can wait. So I guess, like I said, it's a good position to be in. But here we are. We're going to have a little look back at the first part of the 2024 season. Obviously, we're going to be talking about some off-field movements for the Lions, of course, players, staff, and the like. Of course, the AFLW is still going, and the girls are absolutely steamrolling the competition at the moment after that round 1 capitulation. We're going to look at the votes for our finals, and we're just going to have a little bit of a good time, thanks to Hop On Brew Tours and Crisp Communications. Patrick, how has your week been since I left you last Sunday morning?
Yeah, it's been a week. That's pretty much the best way to kind of encapsulate it. Just to go back to what you're saying, I do remember being quite heavily invested in the 2018 draft when we had 3 first rounders.
Yep.
But since then, it was kind of like, oh, well, our team's pretty good, so just whatever. And then Joe Daniher turned up, and it was like, okay, fucking what? And then and now he's gone.
Now he is.
Yeah, it's funny how those things happen. But the week's been a week, and here we are to talk about the football.
All right. Well, let's start with our part 1 of the 2024 review. So we're going to look at the games before the bye, but before we do, we alluded to it last week. You had a smoky call that you let me know during the grand final.
You're really bigging this up, aren't you?
Yeah. Well,
you're really bigging it up. It was a comment just made that I just said, I said, oh
yeah, but you were pretty proud of it at the time.
I was, but it's because it's no surprise here that you and I have been very large advocates for Jared Berry forever.
Yep.
But a lot this year. We think he does a lot of stuff that goes generally unnoticed. When he got just whacked into the midfield, everyone went, wow, look at this guy. He can play. And we said, yes, he does that quite a lot just on the wing. So it goes unnoticed because what are you all, umpires? Come on, broaden your vision. Now, I just said that I think that he will be All-Australian next year because the shackles will be off, the weight is off his back, and I think he'll play with an element of cosmic freedom. And that was my smoky. So it's been a week of lead-up for that. I'm sorry, everybody who was losing sleep thinking it was going to be actually something good. I feel like BT with his announcement. So thanks for that. Yeah.
But that's something to look back on. 7th of October, 2024. When the All-Australian team gets announced next year, we can potentially look back on this. And the good thing is, if it doesn't happen, no one will remember because it'll be, a year away.
So what? So I've gone from being BT to then next year being David King.
You can be whoever you like.
I'd like to be me, thank you. Yeah, so you said we're going to go through the first half, or the first chunk of the season. So,
yeah, I figured we break this up into pre-bye games, the second bye, by the way, the post-bye games, which will obviously be a bit more fun, and then the finals.
Which is less fun in the middle? Surely it's the most fun,
Yeah, it's obviously the most fun. It's gradually going to get more fun, but we have to start... Yeah. But it's all part of the story, It's like us starting 0-3, 2-5 is what makes this premiership so glorious.
I think it's if you did like a line graph to signify the mood throughout the season, it's almost like a perfect film. I know a lot of people have been saying perfect theatre, and I suppose that does work too. But yeah, the line graph would be that first, and we'll get to it. But yes, all right. So this is the setup, I guess. This chunk of games.
Yeah, it really is. And like obviously opening round, we're taking on Carlton at the Gabba. The last team we played at the Gabba in 23, where we started poorly, came back, won the prelim, obviously made our way to the grand final, and then started like a house on fire. And a lot of people still refer to that first quarter, that first half of footy we played against Carlton in the opening round as our best footy. Potentially for the whole year, maybe grand final aside, that was some of our best footy. And then slowly but surely we watched that lead just dwindle away in the back half, especially that third quarter. And that was what we didn't know at the time, going to be the start of a pretty average start to a season.
Yeah, it was a weird start. We looked pretty angry in that first quarter. We looked like we really had a point to prove, and there was kind of like a confidence to us from memory. People were looking pretty like they had a point to prove, and I mean, not too dissimilar really to the qualifying final, the first elimination final.
Yep.
It's just Carlton got two pretty cheapy goals in that first quarter. I remember there being maybe like a kind of a bit of a bullshit free kick on McInerney, and then somehow the ball slimed up somewhere else to someone. But we made a mess of that one, didn't we?
We did. We really did. And, it was, I guess, some sort of weird poetry with Mackay kicking the goal, who has last year been, across his career, I guess, much maligned for his goal kicking, and then for him to kick the sealer was very, very annoying. But
debuted his new kicking technique, where he kicked the ball largely in the general direction of the goal, which is sort of not what he'd been doing quite a lot. He's still possibly one of the worst Coleman medalists ever, in my opinion, in terms of technical ability and football nous.
Well, we'll spend a little bit more time talking about Harry Mackay later, I do believe, because he...
Can I veto that early?
He is a name that's been thrown up, but all sorts of names have been thrown up.
No, sir, I don't like it. So that third quarter was really... It showed a bit of what was to come for the season.
Very much so.
1 goal 6.
Very
one
much
goal
so.
6.
And it felt like we got smacked in that quarter, but we still had enough scoring shots. And Carlton just obviously took their opportunities. But yeah, it was very much a sign of things to come across the season. Not only inaccurate kicking, but building leads and watching them dwindle away.
The first of, I'm assuming, many games where we kicked more behinds than goals. And boy, howdy, did it cost us the game. So I'm going to run a little tally here on this notebook.
Yep.
Which has got random maths drawn on it. So I'm going to keep a tally of how many times that happens. And I'm assuming I'm possibly going to get into... The tally will go to one of those ones where you do the line across to signify the 5. Yes. Potentially it'll get to the 10. I'll keep you posted.
So next week, round 1, we go over to Perth. And, I thought to myself, we'll be better off for having the extra game. Freo are going to come in for their first game. They might be a bit spooked and a bit rusty, whereas at least it was disappointing, but we got a game behind us, and we just never really looked likely against Freo. They looked pretty good, and they continued to look good for the first half of the season before they dwindled away in the back half. So they played some good footy this year, Freo. Some of their best footy was pretty good.
I had them at the start of the year finishing in the top 8, and people thought, I think you thought I was mental. I was like, I don't think they're that bad. And they didn't finish in the top 8, but they probably should have.
Probably. Definitely.
Because they really cocked it up, really. I mean, let's be honest here. What did they lose? 5 in a row or 4 in a row or something like that?
Including a 1-point loss to Essendon to finish things off. You know, the draw against Collingwood, all these little things along the way. They got
absolutely robbed by Carlton in that weird double gather round goal thing for dissent. So Fremantle, I was more wary of than I think most people were, because we've had some good times against Fremantle in the past. Over there. We've had also some less good times involving some Sonny Walters hitting the post, and I think we got kind of touched up a bit by them in actually a similar game 2 years ago.
Yep.
Where they looked very good. Fremantle aren't bad. They're just not quite top tier.
Not yet. We'll see what they do in the off season.
So 10-10, that one didn't cost us. Still not great.
And then we're back at the Gabba, and all the lead up to this match was Collingwood was 0-3, we were 0-2. It's like, how could both of last year's grand final teams get off to such poor starts? One of these teams is about to get their season back on track. The loser of this is going to face heavy scrutiny, especially if Collingwood go 0-4. And once again, that wasn't to be. Another loss at the Gabba, 2 in a row, which is quite foreign for most Brisbane listeners that head along to the Gabba and find us losing another match. But this was another match that we kicked more behinds than goals, so mark this one down. 10 goals, 12, 14-8.
We led at half time, and we kept Collingwood to scoreless in the second quarter. So, the thing is, we've been talking about, and people talk about the old 4-quarter performance, but there have been good quarters dotted around.
Yes.
We just haven't quite put them all together.
Oh, yeah.
So, which will be something that kind of doesn't really happen until grand final day.
I think we had a few.
That one against Port Adelaide.
Yeah, I think we had a few across the year. But it really was a few.
So, I mean, in terms of the team that was being played at that time, it was sort of very much the usual. Just a bit of Darcy Gardner up top, playing as a kind of third guy, which, make of it what you will. Darcy Fort played in that game, funnily enough. I don't recall that. Oscar McInerney also played in that game, so that must have been one where...
Well, we were trying to go up against Darcy Cameron and Mason Cox.
Right.
So the two rucks obviously spooked us in that game.
Yeah, and I don't really think 2 rucks should ever spook anybody, really. But we might be stuck with that, so
well,
maybe we'll have to put on our scary masks and do our best. So, I mean, it was very kind of... It was almost a bit... The lineup was a bit stale at that time, I think. But, here's what it is. What was the next...
Well, the next one was Gather Round. So we go down to Norwood and hand North Melbourne, quite a big win. James Tunstall was in the team for that one. Darcy Gardner came back in. Out went Dev, and Darcy fought for that game. So this could have been maybe one of 2 games that Jimmy Tunstall played, and if that. But certainly a big win for us in that respect, and I don't think anyone really expected anything different, but it was good to get a win on the board, even if it was a soft kill against North Melbourne. It was probably the week after that was more pleasing, where we went down to the MCG, and aside from the last quarter, where we let Melbourne back in it, we were fully in control of that match against the D's, which was really pleasing for a number of reasons, just because I guess Melbourne and Brisbane have obviously formed quite a decent rivalry over the last couple of years. There's a bit of spice, and obviously
we don't like them.
Yeah, no, we don't like them. And in this one, the talking point, if you will, was Noah Answorth coming out of that match doing the crying taunt to Harrison Petty.
Well, he's storming a teacup, that one. Link McCarthy did it 2 years ago, so when it was a week fresh or whatever. So, like that one. just cut it off at 3/4 time and you basically get what the game was. I think it's good because, Petrarca was playing in that game, so they weren't kind of as feckless as they were at the end of the season anyway. So we dealt with Petrarca really well, which I think was quite a good sign going forward, because there were other games where we kind of we dealt with the Bont pretty well later on in the game, later on in the season and stuff like that. So just some coaching that was good. Go figure.
And then we thought to ourselves, okay, we're back on track here. Yeah, slow start, maybe grand final hangover, maybe it's this Vegas thing that's probably popped up around this time of the season. Maybe it's, the death of Nicole Duncan, the shorter preseason, whatever it is. We got off to a slow start, but maybe we're back on track here. We're 3-2 or 2-3. Let's see if we can go back to the Gabba and win against the Cats, who were undefeated at that stage, and it absolutely pissed down. And mark this one down on your tally here: 4 goals, 13, which is almost worth 2 little matchsticks, if you will. Just did not adjust to the conditions whatsoever, and we got burnt by their small forwards that were coming up into the contest and running their way back. Stengel just tore us apart.
Yeah, this is kind of, I remember, part one, in the case of very pivotal goals being kicked against us that then ended up being reportable offences.
That's right, yeah.
They stuck in my mind. Jeremy Cameron legged Hugh McCluggage and got holding the ball that they, I think, played on and kicked goal after very good defensive work. And it was just sitting there going, okay, he got a fine for the, for legging or tripping or whatever the hell afterwards. And I think, maybe wrong, but I think that was when, I think it might have been their 3rd or 4th goal, Geelong. So we were still ahead.
Yep.
Oh, man, boils your blood sometimes.
Our first 10 minutes was pretty good. And then Oscar went down with a concussion.
That's right.
And
because they had some weird dude in the ruck, right?
Toby Conway, who all of a sudden looked like an all-Australian ruckman because, well, he was rucking basically solely against Joe Daniher, which probably would have been handy experience come later in the season, as we'll get to. But yeah, that was a very disappointing game as well, for lots of reasons.
Yeah, we had... it was just kind of... all 4 quarters were a bit bloody wasteful, weren't they?
Not as disappointing as the next game, though. The ill-fated Anzac Day clash against the Giants down at Canberra, where our first half was okay. I won't say it was good.
We were lucky to be in that game.
It was okay.
We were very lucky to be leading. That was one of the games. I don't think GWS have played better football in the whole season than that game. I don't know if you remember, but their kicking efficiency by foot was 96% for the first
stupid.
2 quarters. It was unbelievable. They were just pinging the ball around everywhere, and then when
kicking goals from outside 50.
Yeah, Callum Brown looked like, I don't know, combined Lloyd and Wayne Carey. So this is obviously before he concussed that dude and his career seemingly ended. I don't know. That's got to be one of the great mysteries of the season. But Kingsley, being the obvious kind of arithmetic nerd, was like, all right, boys, kicking efficiency's off the chain. That's not going to hold up. Run and gun. So they ran and gun in the second half. And Finn Callahan looked like the Bont. That small child dude with the headgear looked like someone else small in a headgear.
Nathan
running around really fast. They were very impressive.
They were very impressive, and we were equally as... That is... It's fair to say that was probably the low point of the season, 2-5, and we've just been absolutely hammered and didn't look like giving a yelp in that second half. I remember the press conference after, Fags didn't have an answer. He's like, I don't know what's going on. I'm looking at the numbers, and all the numbers say we should be doing better than we are. I've got no idea what the answer is. So it was a really... Yeah, it was just... That's about as low as I felt this year. and for a couple of years as well, because it sort of felt like, well, this is it. This is all slipped away. Like every finals appearance, the straight sets, the prelims, the grand final loss last year, maybe that was our chance and we've let it slip, and now we are going to... And we were talking about it this time and just saying like, all right, we might finish bottom half of the 8, but we'll be making up the numbers. But more likely we'll be finishing in that sort of 9 to 12 bracket if we can get things right.
Yeah, if you want to hear a visceral reaction to this game, we recorded the podcast like right after the game.
That's right.
And it was not good.
No, but I think everyone would have felt similar. Like all Lions fans would have felt very similar in that moment.
Yeah, I just remember being very amped up with anger. And not really anger, more just general frustration, disappointment. Just because, it did feel like we got absolutely taught a lesson by, what I thought were probably the best team in the competition at the time. Their inconsistencies and GWS's, let's say, luck kind of ran out eventually. I don't know. In 44 points up in in an elimination final when your luck runs out, that's pretty brutal, but sucked in. So
8 goals, 11 for that one.
Sorry?
8 goals, 11 for that one, so mark that down.
Oh yeah, no, that's down. That one's down.
And then came one of our best / worst games for different reasons. Q Clash at the Gabba, where 10 goals, 19, mark that down.
No, that goes in a different column, so it goes in ones that didn't cost us.
Okay, sure.
So we've got the ones that we pure got away with, and ones that were like, yeah, what are we doing there? Yes, this game surely should be some kind of like folklore game within the club, right?
Yeah, it has to be.
I know that a lot of the narrative has kind of been just hijacked by Logan Morris's trip on the bloody... Which highway? I can't remember. Western Highway? Where he was at Brighton Homes, went up to the Gabba, right?
Yeah, so he would have taken the...
Ipswich Highway? Ipswich Motorway?
Yeah, he would have got that on that eventually, but it would have been the Centenary or something like that.
I mean, you don't take the Centenary with that bridge. 2 lanes. Get out of town. You wouldn't make the game. You want to go Ipswich Road. This is me showing that I do remember living in that city. Yes, so a lot of the narrative has been taken by Logan Morris.
But we also had...
Starcevic pings his little calf in the warm-up.
Yeah. And this is a bloke who's obviously the Macca's trip, the Grand Angus, the frappe, and then the soup. He's already played a full game of VFL, hasn't got his boots. He wears Will Ashcroft's boots. He gets the tap on the shoulder saying, mate, you're going to be sub. In an ideal world, we won't have to use you. But
turns out it was not an ideal world.
We didn't need you to sit there for today because Stas has done his calf. We didn't have Archie in for that game either. I can't recall exactly why, but in also came Bruce. Harry Sharp made his way into the team. Oscar was back after that concussion, and of course Logan Morris. But how many did we have on the bench by the end of it? Because we had 2 knees in that game. And
Ainsworth got brained, I think.
Yeah, something else happened, I remember. I think we were down to 1 on the bench. But, for as disappointing as the game against GWS was, this game was so uplifting for that reason. The rival, if you will, of the Gold Coast Suns, who the last time we played them absolutely smacked us down the road. But to have, the kids come in, Bruce and Logan, and then to lose Darcy and Link was probably the loss that we didn't want to have, because at that stage, the Darcy Gardner up forward experiment, people were very iffy on it. And people wanted change, but Fague seemed reluctant to do so. And then his hand was forced by the time that Darcy went down with that knee. Evidently, we stayed with the 3 tall forward situation with Logan in the end. But, just a really sort of good character building win, and probably one that we built our season off, I guess, in the end.
Yeah, I still find it really impressive to look at statistically and look at just time on ground on our players. And it's just, it was obvious that when you have 2 guys go down with knees, Starcevic obviously didn't play. McCarthy played 5%, Noah Ainsworth played 15%, and Gardner 29%. And then you got a lot of guys playing 90% game time, and particularly coming after a time when we were like, the Giants game, I was very critical of the team's fitness and training methods because we heard things. And not to kind of forget about it, but I think in the first half of the season, there was a lot of like Friday, Thursday, Sunday kind of shit going on. And I don't think we handled that very well.
No.
Because when we started getting back to playing every sort of Saturday in graveyard shift, wow, did we find some form? Bit of a routine, as every psychologist will tell you. Routine and physical activity trumps all the other mad shit you do. So, I think at the halfway point, there wasn't much to choose from, but I think you and I both, you said the Melbourne game was your favourite. This one was my favourite, not because I like seeing people. I mean, I still find it difficult watching Link McCarthy's fucking eyes roll back into his head.
Yeah.
I felt very, very poor for Link McCarthy, but backs to the wall, and we kind of just did the damage early with that one.
Yeah, luckily we held on, and had we kicked straight, it would have been it felt like a big win. It was 34 points in the end, but it felt a lot bigger than that. I guess it comes down to the fact that we lost players, we debuted kids.
Why did we kick 9 behinds in the third quarter?
That's a question.
That seems insane. Why would anyone want to do that?
The first of 2 Ashcroft medals, though, for Zorko, who finished with 40 touches and for some reason had no one near him. You'd think they'd fix that up for the next game, but we'll chat about that in the back half. And then the draw down in Adelaide, Shadow Brain's first game. 13 goals, 12 apiece on this one. I do remember, Shadow comes in, and this was probably Archie's one of his better games in the home and away season. He sort of put his hand up to take that Lincoln McCarthy role and played it very, very well, and I think had the chance to seal the win in the last quarter or to get us back within or something to that effect. But he was a real standout for me in this game. That, and obviously getting Shadow Brain on the field as well.
Yeah, we missed Starcevic in that game, obviously out with the calf, and Rankin was pretty good. I think he probably ended up with the 3 votes on that day. But yeah, it was pretty seesawy. And I mean, Crows are a little bit like Fremantle, where they're not bad, they just lack a little bit of something.
Yeah.
And it's sort of, I mean, I think probably the Crows have been possibly the biggest underachieving team in the last 25 years since they won their 2 premierships. They've been around, but they've never really been anyone's favourites, have they? Except for Crows fans.
I mean, I don't mind the Crows.
No, I mean in terms of like premiership favourites.
Oh yeah, no.
17 was a bad one for them.
I mean, that's obviously one they should have put away. And I remember the other thing that came out of this game was Nixie pulled the trigger on the sub at halftime, and then just after halftime, Josh Worrell went down with that broken forearm or wrist or whatever it was, and then they're like, "Well, what are you doing?" But I didn't mind it from Nixie. He's trying to get something moving.
He's trying to influence the game, and I think some people are. Matthew Lloyd is really weird about the sub. Some of the stuff he says doesn't actually make a great deal of sense, I feel. Because, and he kind of came up with the Max Holmes thing in the prelim, where he's like, 15 minutes off the ground, just like if you had 5 on the bench, then you just throw someone else on. But it's like, you don't realize that if you put 5 on the bench, they'll formulate an algorithm to make that the most efficient way. So then when someone goes down with an injury, the other team will benefit from also having 5 off the bench.
Yeah.
So then one team will have 4, and then you just keep. When will this end?
Yeah.
We need 6 on the bench. I personally think the sub rule works. I know a lot of people don't like it, but I think it's a good contingency. I think, the tactical element is good, but when it was medical sub, I reckon the player who gets subbed off should have to miss a week at least.
Yeah, well, I guess that was originally the idea, and then teams took the piss with it. So
We needed a that's where I think if a player misses a week, then you're not going to be kind of mincing words of like, oh, he's got a sore nose. Like, get him off. And does that put us? No. Wait. When was the bye?
So a couple of weeks away. So in between the Adelaide game and the bye, we had the destruction of Richmond. That
was cathartic, wasn't it?
By 119 points, which we kicked amazingly accurate. 26 goals, 7.
Not doing a -1.
And then we had, I guess, the next lowest point of our season was that loss to Hawthorn in the run into the bye, where we definitely could have put ourselves in a position to win that game. And mark this one down: 10 goals, 15 to 15 goals, 10. So there's your answer. This was Brandon Ryan's first and only appearance for the Lions, where we didn't.
What a hot start! We kicked a goal within a minute, didn't he?
That's right, and then he was basically unsighted from there. We had Eric Hipwood out; he was suspended. So in comes Brandon Ryan. Zach Bailey comes back after his calf, and had little to no influence on that game. But yeah,
Jack Gunston was arguably best on ground with a performance the like of which we never saw. He did a very good job on the old Harris Andrews. Sicily was really good. His kicking was fantastic. Shame about the head attached to the legs. So, I think at that time, Hawthorn were building it. I think that probably internally for Hawthorn would have been like a pretty big win for them, because they kind of kept us at arm's length more or less the whole game. Once the game had kind of settled. Yeah. And I think it was kind of like a mature performance that they could probably have looked at and been like, this is what we can do to some really good teams. Let's just ignore the fact that a bunch of their players are dead and missing. So they could have harnessed that quite well to kind of move forward. And that said, fuck them. Hawthorn.
Well, they continue to be one of the teams that just have our number. What's that, 5 in a row or something for them now?
Yeah. I wonder if we'll get a game against them at the Gabba next year, as Lil Faggy said. Like,
be nice.
We haven't played him at the Gabba in a long time. We tend to get him we get him everywhere, because that was at Docklands, which was weird.
Yeah, so normally it's Tassie, or we had him at the MCG last year, obviously, and at the start of 2020. But yeah, this one was at Marvel, so be nice to play him up in Brizzy.
Teach him a lesson on heat or something like that.
Well, let's just see what they do next year, because they might be right up there again if they keep going the way they're going, and look, they're getting some players in through the door as well, so good for them. But that takes us to the bye, and we head into the bye 4-6-1, 4-7-1. And you think to yourself,
not good.
Yeah, not good at all.
We kicked so many behinds. I lost my temperament and forgot to do the sideways line. So I've just got 5 vertical lines. I didn't even do the tally. So that's how rattled I got. I missed doing the tallying our misses.
How good. Speaking of tallies, we obviously crowned Lachie Neale as the winner of the home and away season votes, the JB. The Paddy is the finals award. And if we look at the votes, the man that won the ultimate prize on grand final day, and now our winner of the finals player for the Brisbane Lions Fancast, Will Ashcroft, finished with 11 votes.
Well done. What was our top 4?
Top 4, so we had Zorko finish with 8, and Archie and Starcevic both finished with 6.
How many votes did you give Zorko?
I gave Zorko 6 votes.
Okay.
And you gave him 2.
It's just funny. I was just sort of comparing it to the old, the BNF top 4, because Lachie was in the top 4, I believe. Like, they had 4 tyre shit going on. I was just curious, because I mean, whilst, yeah, anyway, I don't want to talk bad about Zorko. He was perfectly fine, but occasionally a bit terrifying. But
at least it was only occasionally.
Good point. Yeah. Well, good on little Ashcroft, and I think, assuming we get to finals next year, I might reevaluate the voting system for that one, because I feel like it's weird, because we looked back at it, and I guess they kind of fell more or less the same as what the club landed on. But when you look at the whole final series as like a thing rather than like individual,
yep,
it does kind of throw a little bit out of whack, because Joe Daniher is not anywhere near that, and he was pretty good.
Certainly was
pretty important. And Kalachi and Starcevic were really good. Leicester was really good. So I might have to go and meditate. Not that I've ever meditated on a new voting system. Come up with something absolutely zany. Yeah, I could come up with something really weird. This could be fun. Leave it with me. Yeah, so that's good. But yeah, I'm thinking like conservative estimate, the winner's getting 7,000 votes.
All right, well,
so pretty good in the end. Yeah, I think whilst sometimes you can get the right result, the getting there is the piss take.
Of course.
I'm not talking about the Brownlow medal, but we didn't even bother talking about the the Brownlow medal because we had a grand final to talk about. But I talked pretty. I had some things to say when Lachie Neale won the Brownlow in terms of what the Brownlow was and how how it all made sense. I don't know if you remember the absolute nightmare that came out of my mess of a mouth that was like, you've got to be the best player in the game relative to the players around you over the course of the season based on games, rather than like looking at the season as a whole. Lachie Neale is very good at that. Patrick Cripps perfected it by having no one else in his team. There's no denying that I think that Patrick Cripps should have won the Brownlow medal, but I don't think that he should have won with 45 fucking votes.
In a 13-year season or whatever, yeah.
Like, it's just... I said leading into that Bontempelli would be nowhere because his team let him down and they didn't win enough games. You know how they won more games then? Carlton and Collingwood. So there goes that theory. I just don't think that you can be... I don't know that you can be best on ground when you lose. We saw a lot of that back in the day. Tom Rockcliffe, Dane Beams, they picked up a lot of twos. And they were probably the best players on the field in those 2 games. But they were never given the 3 because we didn't win. But somehow that's changed. And I'm not saying that it's, you can't be the best player on the field in a losing team, but it's like, it just seems weird.
It does.
45 votes, that's ridiculous. It's insane.
It's a lot of votes for a 13-win season. But as you said, he thoroughly deserved the Brownlow medal, so I guess it's...
Well, he deserved it more than his first one.
Very much so. Very much so.
So that's a little bit on the Brownlow. You can put that down in the chapters.
Staying with awards and votes and stuff, I guess. We had the BNF on Thursday night and a number of awards to hand out there. Logan Morris, Rookie of the Year. Huey won the Most Professional Player of the Year. Dunks won Players Player of the Year. Trademark Player of the Year, Oscar. Fantastic stuff. The finals players, Ashcroft, Neale, Stas, and Archie, which makes sense. Cam Rayner won the Game Changer, fan-voted award. JL, the best and fairest for the reserves. And then only 2 votes separating the top 3, which was crazy. So Neale capped off a great year with the BNF. Zorko just 1 vote behind him. And then Dunkley in 3rd place, which I think was nice that he got the recognition. And Darcy Wilmot finished top 5. Fantastic. It shows a lot about our team where Harris Andrews can finish 7th. Yeah,
it also shows a lot about the team that they don't just fudge the numbers to have a 3-way tie. Like, just do it. It'd be fun. Everyone would have liked that narrative. Although, does it ruin the integrity? Maybe, but who cares?
It reminds me of that year. Was it 2014?
What, the 7-way tie?
Yeah, with like
every
Robbo
player on the
and
list won with -1 vote or something.
It's like all the new
Who was
recruits
it?
as well. It was like Mitch Robinson, Dane Beams, and Steph Martin, and it was probably
Dorco and some other
Yeah.
Patful or something, probably.
Yeah, it was
Just
crazy.
a scrum up on the on the dais. But yeah, I would have liked to have seen Zorko and Neil share it. That's what I predicted.
Yeah, that would have been nice.
Not that I like really thought about it. I just was like, that'd be cool. I was going more off feeling rather than logistics. But yeah, I didn't catch it because I heard the audio was terrible and how'd it go? I know you weren't there, but you probably watched it.
No, I watched a little bit of it. Yeah, I watched the initial speech when the audio was cracked out, and it was annoying because Fags was going through all the players that played on the grand final day, and he like made mention that he was going to talk about Oscar, and he went through number order, and just before he got to Oscar, the stream cut out so they could fix the audio. He also skipped over Connor McKenna, and I don't know if he fixed that. I'm sure he did. But yes, that was annoying.
Probably bought him a pint of Guinness later on or something as recompense.
And then I don't know. It's an awards night, so there's a lot of dry fluff in there as well. And but it's fine. I went a couple of years ago.
All our blokes turned up, I assume.
Yep.
Yeah. Also worth noting as well, life membership to Nicole Duncan.
Yeah, amazing stuff, and Harris Andrews as well as a side. But yeah, nice to have Nicole Duncan's family there to accept that.
Yeah, that's still a bit of a pisser, isn't it?
Yeah.
It still is a kind of a overarching kind of just general dampener on the season and a whole. And I hope there's an element where it is not the sort of thing that I hope they go hand in hand.
Yep.
You know, like I hope it is something that doesn't just go, all right, well, we won the flag, but and fucking whatever. I hope it's still there. If they do documentaries or season reviews, I hope it's there.
Yeah, I hope so too. And then it's funny, the fella that was handing out the hats at the end of the grand final and shake the kid's hand, he is the guy that took over Nicole Duncan. So that would have been Nicole Duncan in another life, obviously. So he's gained a little bit of cult figure status from
notoriety.
Yeah, for his there's that Carlton draft shirt, the final boss of him handing out the hats. Bloody good stuff.
Well, it's no wonder he was taking it so seriously.
Yeah.
And yeah, almost perfect. But again, Charlie Cameron will be immortalised next to such great blokes as Beau McCreary and Tom Stewart. So great.
There's always got to be one.
Non-shakers. I feel like if you can get Kai Lohman and Darcy Wilmot to do it,
I know.
That's pretty good. That's like a solid A-.
Yeah. All right. Well, some off-field chat. Obviously, the big one is going to be Joe Daniher. But before we get there, let's. We've obviously made a couple of delistings so far. Kalen Lane. I feel bad for him because he's going to be in the middle of a knee rehab. Carter Michael. I think we all saw this coming. Just simply could not get his body right.
Dare I say it? Stevie Wonder saw this coming.
Yeah. And Jimmy Madden, who he's probably been on the list a little bit longer than I would have thought he'd be on the list. He played a few games for us last year as well, which was crazy. And he played the preseason games for us. It looked like he was, I guess, ready to play a few more games, but yeah.
He's played a strange number of games for us, but I think it was probably like an amicable thing, right? He's like, I'm going to go back to Ireland and try and win.
Yeah, play some
whatever the thing. Become the fourth player to win both, or fifth player or whatever. So, Connor McKenna being one of them that has, along with like Ty Kennelly and some other jerk. Tui.
Yeah, probably.
Tui?
Yeah, probably.
Tui probably won one when he was like 15 and then came over here. So, strikes me as a type. So yeah, those three does it really matter? Probably not.
Probably not. It's always, you've got to say goodbye to some people at the end of the season. Jimmy Madden's probably the biggest name in that. But off-field as well, not just players. We lose Murray Davis. He's going to go be Director of Coaching at Adelaide after being here for, 13 years or something. So I was listening to an interview with the bloke from Adelaide who said they tried to get him last year, but he was fully committed to Brisbane and wouldn't even entertain a chat with Adelaide until after we'd finished our final. So Muzz has been there for a long, long time. He was the backline coach for a long time, and then before making the swap over to the forwards the last couple of years, and obviously knows what he's doing.
Yeah, I didn't realise that he'd been there, I think, since Voss had been the coach. So
yeah, be close to that.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. I think he went through all that shit, and fair play to him. I don't know a lot about him. We know that I've been critical of certain coaches over the years, but I'm really happy that he was able to leave having won a premiership, and forward craft was pretty good. So cool, good stuff. But that does open the door.
Oh, does it what? Opens the door for the man himself. The key to our success, the man that came in at the bye 1 day a week and suddenly we're playing astonishing football. Stewie Jew comes in full-time assistant. You beauty. That's what we're all hoping for.
So it means that our assistant coaching stocks, they're looking they're looking a lot better than they were. You throw Trent Cotchin into the mix, just as like a general ambient. Sounds weird to describe Trent Cotchin as a general ambient, but so they're looking not too bad. Has anyone else been poached coaching-wise?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Danny Daly's name still is getting thrown around, whether it's West Coast or Collingwood seems to be coming pretty hard for him. So
he would get a lot of money from either of those clubs, right?
He certainly would. So fingers crossed he remains loyal. Haven't heard any... Like, his name just keeps popping up here and there, but there's never really, like, a lengthy discussion that follows.
Yeah, but this stuff sort of happens, though, when your team does well. Like, the amount of stuff you see where it's like, Western Australia teams are chasing Starcevic to go back to Western Australia. It's like, if you didn't want him last year, don't take him this year.
Yeah.
He's the same player, Like, also, he's here. It's not as if he, like, moved from... I mean, I know he moved from Western Australia, but he moved from Western Australia because he had, like, family ties here. So it's not as if it's just, like, there's a go-home factor for the old Starcevic.
Yeah.
I mean, we've probably talked about this before, but what age do you reckon you are when you start being, like, kind of cognizant of your own decisions?
I would argue sometimes I'm still not.
Yeah, see, there you go. And Starcevic has played a hell of a lot of football in Queensland. He's lived here since 2018. So that's 7 years. Before then, he's going back to 11. Like, are you really considering 11 to 18? Like, what's home?
Yeah.
I don't know. Bit like Daniel Rich. So, fuck off, Western Australia. You can take your Dev Rob and your Pryor. You can give us Oscar Allen. So probably brings us to the bigger news if you want to take off here, Brooks.
Yeah, well, I mean, you've just touched on it there. I would imagine that Dev Rob and Jackson Pryor will probably head back over to
That's
WA.
not the big news, you
No, but we should probably touch on it in terms of off-field stuff. Those two will probably head back over west. And it'd probably help us to get some picks for Dev to secure Levi and this Sam Marshall fella and, hopefully help us in our quest for a new key forward, because that's it. This time last week we didn't know. We pretty much knew that Joe Daniher was going to call it quits. Like, the writing was on the wall. Official now, he is gone. Probably never to be heard from or seen ever again. He'll, ride off into the sunset with $1 million left on the table. It's crazy,
Will he do a bit of like a Tony Lockett and just not be seen for like 1 billion years and then come back like emaciated one day?
Maybe not emaciated, but I do reckon he will just disappear.
Yeah. Tell you what, it was a bit disappointing. I found a career highlights package for Joe Daniher. They roughly played 50-50. I think he played, 106 games at Essendon and...
Yeah.
Whatever. There's about a minute of an 11-minute video of him playing for Brisbane. That is Vic bias right there. And I reckon he had far better career moments at Brisbane, let's be honest.
Well, yes.
Let's be honest. So, yeah, that leaves us in a bit of a pickle, I got to say.
Really does. So, there's endless options here. The way I see it is you can go about it this way. You obviously try and target someone in the trade period that's now, or we promote from within, and that either means you give Henry Smith first crack and say, you better put in one hell of a preseason and get ready because you are now officially second ruck and key forward, maybe second forward behind Eric, maybe third, depending on your Logan. Another option is we spin the magnets and you say to Jack Payne, hey, Tom Duday's taking your spot next year, and we'll have you as a backup, key position defender if shit hits the fan again in our key position defender stocks. But we're going to train you up forward in this preseason and see if you can get your mind around some forward craft. Thoughts? Before we get into names that have been thrown around in trade period, what do you think of those ideas?
Well, I think with Payne, I'd probably sooner it be Gardner that would do that, assuming he comes back from his knee in due time.
Well, I still think him and Link are probably going to miss the start of next year. Like, they won't get a proper preseason in.
If that's the case, I think Henry Smith starts the season.
Yep.
We heard very, very good words from Max Gawn about Henry Smith. I thought, I think people have been kind of a little bit hard on Henry Smith and when he came into the team. Because, yeah, he looked pretty timid and he looked a little bit spooked by the occasion. But, the games that he came in for were, fucking Sydney and then, probably another game, probably two. They were pretty...
Yep.
Pretty hectic games, and he's a giant dude. They take time. I don't think Oscar really was playing until he was about 24, and even then, we talked about it last week that he was integrated into the team with Steph Martin over the time. So it's not as if Big O came in and was just bam, here you go, off you go, sink or swim. And that's also not what happened with Henry Smith, but to be able to kind of do that, I think, is more viable in terms of long term, and it's kind of developing on the go. It's the sort of thing where if we choose to do that for a year, it'll hold us instead for if and when things up the shoulders. So that would be my choice.
I guess there is a bit of a sense of emergency now, though, or urgency, because we're we're in the window and everyone's got a taste for, we want back-to-back now. And, I mean, obviously that was, especially the GWS game, built very heavily off the back of Joe Daniher being a very, very good key forward that you can't just replace. So do we have the time and patience to give to Henry Smith to develop across the year if we're looking to go back-to-back? Or do we go, all right, no, we need to hit the trade table and try and lure someone in with this $1 million we've suddenly got sitting there?
But the thing is, we don't really have anyone that we can deal with. They have to be unlisted, restricted, whatever the fucking terminology is.
I guess there's a couple of options in that respect. You could look at a Levi Casbolt, a Sam Day, a Matthew Taberner, a Tim Membry type of operator, or you go balls to the wall. And did you see what Adam Cooney put forward as that mega trade?
Not yet, but just go back for a sec. So Casbolt, absolutely fucking not. Sam Day, who the hell is that? I always get him confused with Will Day.
Another Gold Coast forward that's been there for a long time. He's handy. He's not Joe Daniher, but he's handy. He's a big, tall body that's got AFL experience.
Taberner's from Fremantle, right?
Yep. And so he's been usurped by Tracy and Amiss.
Yeah, because I know his name more so, and I'm pretty sure he's kicked some goals against us in the time. But, I mean, Membry I don't think is good for our culture, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I just think that got baggage.
I mean, I don't really know much about Tim Membry, but if you want to talk about culture, some of the other names that's been thrown up as ludicrous.
The name that I threw up kind of half jokingly is insane too. But okay, so what has the worst Brownlow medalist in history got to say about this?
So this is what he put forward. And I don't know if this was just in an effort to create content. I didn't hear the segment. I just saw the graphic that was posted afterwards.
What was he eating McDonald's while he gave this thought?
Probably. It's trade radio, so he was probably eating or drinking something from one of the sponsors, one of the billion sponsors. So his idea was this: Kitty Coleman, Zach Bailey, Lincoln McCarthy, and a future first for Harry Mackay.
I don't want to hear the rest of the story.
that
Harry Mackay is not worth what like a guy that was finals player of the year last year, runner up in the Gary Ayres medal. Jesus Christ! Oh, that's the dumbest.
Yeah, your reaction is very much the same as everyone else's, not just Lions fans, just footy fans going.
I know Zach Bailey's been maligned, but if he can play like he did on grand final day with temperament and efficiency and impact, you know, if you look at him on the whole, you've got people would have at the end of last year, people would have traded 2 first-round picks for Coleman.
Yeah,
and then you got Zach Bailey, who's I still am hold fast on any team would have him in there starting however many he's on the field, 18. Link McCarthy is probably worth about a second rounder. Plus a future. So you're looking at it. Harry Mackay is not worth fucking 4 first round picks.
I know.
Like he is an absolute, and also he's a moron.
I think
surely this is just. I feel like this is just a way to get Carlton like, they're lacking it a little bit here, but nah, that can keep going.
I think
not only is he the worst Brownlow medalist, he's also the worst trade radio guy.
I think it all just centers around this sense of urgency. There's like, well, we're in the window. We need a key forward if we want to go back to back. So, like, how desperate is everyone to make it happen, I guess. But yeah, that is off its head in terms of...
That's possibly the dumbest thing I've heard in football.
A couple of other names that have been thrown around. Tom Lynch. Everyone keeps coming back to Tom Lynch because, well, he's a key forward that is 32. We only need him for a year or two. And it would be so Tom Lynch to go from a failing club to a club in the Premiership window. The other one, which is the worst...
He does play pretty well with Stewie Dew around, doesn't he?
Well, who knows? He hasn't been on the park in forever. Like, his body just doesn't hold up. So that's a big red flag, if nothing else.
It does seem funny, the idea that, you know, you can have a 31-year-old Joe Daniher retire for the prospective Tom Lynch who's older to come in.
Yeah.
Like, it's funny. Yes. Yeah. Come back to that, I guess.
And the worst name that's been thrown our way is Jake Stringer.
Oh, is that the worst one?
That's the worst one for me. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'd sooner finish Wooden Spoon than take Jake Stringer on our list.
Yeah. No, I don't think that's a good idea. Because it doesn't really fit the type. And we'll talk about my dumb idea, which also doesn't really fit the type. But just purely for the hilariosity of it and to kind of double speak everything. Like, will Dustin Martin play for Gold Coast next year? No, because he'll play for Brisbane as a full forward, goal square predator with his mate Cochin there. You know, if you were him and you had any thought about maybe playing, why wouldn't you?
I don't know.
On a one year deal, just go, give me Joe Daniher's $1 million and I'll sit in the goal square and I'll just put the fear of God in every team we play.
I just don't see it happening.
No, of course, absolutely. It's definitely not happening, but it's the sort of thing where, like, that's the kind of outside of the box shit.
No,
you gotta
I
be
hear
thinking
you.
that when we don't have any currency, and this is the thing, we don't have currency, and I think play a dangerous game when you push out people that want to be at your club. So if you've got Kitty Coleman, Link McCarthy, Adam Cooney's motley crew of fucking... As soon as you start pushing players out of the club that want to be there, you start risking issues with your integrity within the club.
Well,
so,
you only have to look back at when we threw Daniel Bradshaw up for Fev and the long-lasting effects that had. Like, in effect, it meant we lost Luke Power because he didn't like that. He went to GWS and probably would have stayed at Brisbane had that whole Bradshaw thing not have happened.
Similar with Jed Adcock as well, I think, as well. Just being like, you're done. I know he didn't do fuck all with the Bulldogs, and he kind of eventually had his revenge as a line coach for many years. But yeah, I think you got to think outside the box. So Tom Lynch or Dusty, to me, are the two external viabilities, and one of them is not viable at all because it's a retired guy. But I just think to promote within and to hope for the best. You know, Hipwood used to kick a lot more goals when it was just him and McStay.
Yeah.
Like a lot more goals.
We also won a lot less premierships.
True, but I don't necessarily think that was because of that.
No, maybe not. The other option is similar to the thought you just mentioned with Dusty. Cam Rayner takes a more full forward-ish type role. And we go with Logan and Eric, and Rayner is your third tall, if you will. And that sort of worked for us in 2023 in bits, but obviously we had Daniher and Hipwood as the two. So the good news is that at the BNF night, Fag said that Joe let him know at the end of 2023 if we had a 1, he would have called it then. But if we didn't, I'll give you 1 more year. So he's had 12 months to think about it, and you'd have to think the list management team have had 12 months to think about it and come up with a plan that isn't us sitting here going, Dustin Martin at full forward.
That was fun.
Yes, it's fun. And I, as long as it's fun and never becomes reality.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that I floated it to a couple of Richmond people, and they were like, it doesn't make me throw up in my mouth the way that Gold Coast does.
Sure.
So that's generally a positive thing. I was sort of like, look, this is completely, I've made this up. This is not, there's no whisper, no rumor. And if there is from now on, this guy. But yeah, I don't know. Tom Lynch, I don't know. Like, he's pretty old. He wouldn't do ruck time. Who knows?
No, he wouldn't.
The thing with Logan Morris is he's not super tall, is he?
No.
He's only 191. And that said, he could still be growing. He's only 12 or whatever.
I think
I can see him coming back next year with a man's body.
Sure. I think Henry Smith is probably the option, unless something miraculous, pops its head up in trade period that we can get over the line. But I think it's probably going to be the Henry Smith situation.
Yeah, I don't think Jake String is really tickling that edge. I don't think Levi Casbolt. I don't really remember the other ones. So
there you go.
That probably goes to show. Yeah.
Well, other than that, we haven't really been linked to anyone in this trade period because we're obviously going draft. But there's 2 names that were briefly linked to the Lions, and Malcolm Rosas Jr. and Matt Owies. No!
Yeah,
I know. But no, apparently no one's interested in Matt Owies. So
why the hell would we be interested in a downgrade? Like, he's a downgrade on every single one of our small forwards.
It's weird.
He's a downgrade on Harwood that used to play as a small forward. Sorry, Ryan Harwood.
Yeah.
Is that his name?
Yeah, he's copping strays. He didn't need that today.
I know, but I was just trying to think about who possibly...
Yeah.
Jake Barrett?
Sure.
Matt Owies is worse than Jake Barrett. Pick 96. Anyway, sorry, Jake Barrett and the other guy.
Rosas from the Gold Coast.
No, Harwood.
Oh, yeah.
Rosas, I don't know.
I don't know that we need small forwards.
No.
When we've got Craven and McLaughlin in the twos as well.
Yeah. Nah.
Yeah.
Get the fuck out of here. Get out of here, Matt Owies. He's just like he's a shit less likable Tom Papley.
Ooh.
Tom Papley is not likable.
Yeah, he's not likable.
That's the standard here. That's the standard. I put Matt Owies as my most hated player this year.
Really?
Yeah. Something about his weird face just...
Sure. Okay.
He looks like an absolute grubster.
Yeah.
And this is personal.
I can feel that.
Not personal, it's just I don't like him. So he's probably fine.
You can't start digging up now. You can't.
No, I'm just allegedly covering bases.
All right, well, that is part one of our review for 2024. We'll be back with part two next week. Of course, the AFLW is still going. The girls just walloped Carlton by 50-odd points. Haven't lost a game since that round one game against North. And Chucky Mullins, who's taken off the role of Ola O'Dwyer, who's now out with a shoulder for a few weeks. So she had a fantastic game up on the wing. So she's moved from small forward up the field a bit to a wing role, and she looked very adept at that. So the girls are looking good, ready to make another flag tilt, which would be amazing, and another step closer to that $1 million McClelland Trophy prize.
Can we trade that $1 million for like a draft pick so we can trade it for someone?
Well, we've suddenly got a spare $1 million. It's crazy that Joe Daniher, like, there is a very few things I wouldn't do for $1 million, and he's happy to
play football for $1 million. Like, I feel like, I mean, I'm old.
Man's
anything for $1 million.
Yeah. He's obviously got his life sorted and different priorities, and good on him. Like, all I can say is good on him. He's done amazing for this club. He's won us a premiership. He deserves to do whatever it is he wants to do. And if that's walking away from $1 million when he's in arguably career best form, then good on him. That is so Joe Daniher.
I think we talked about it beforehand, but the idea that Josh Battle is, his contract was rated at pick 8 and Perryman were rated at pick 16. It's like they clearly have not re-established with the new collective bargaining agreement and what the contracts are, how they factor in, because there is no world that Josh Battle is a fucking pick 8.
No.
So, I mean, we saw it last year, but the thing is, had McCluggage not signed on, we'd lost into free agency on a $800,000 whatever it was. What was it? 750, 800, 900?
Yeah, something
that's going to be the normal amount.
Yep.
So that is not that's not a first. If it's an average amount of salary, it is not a first round draft pick. Stupid. So our pick 18 goes to 20. So how does that work when you're trying to do mathematics to try and get your buddies to turn up to the club? Don't know. Just a bit of a shout. I think it's been put around a bit, but there's a pretty cool video kind of comparing the two Ashcrofts and what to expect by some guy in a well-lit room.
Yeah, I saw that.
It's quite a good video. Did we... I put a bit of a call out, and I don't blame no one for remembering because it was 2 hours into a mess last week. But did anyone kind of have any grand final moments that they shared, or are we just going to collate them at some point in time, or did no one get back to
No,
us?
I didn't get any.
Thanks, everyone.
Fair enough. People are still coming down from last week. Another quick shout out to our mate James Collins, who is doing the t-shirts, the Premiership t-shirts. There's a few more in the catalogue now. So there's a Joe Daniher one. There's a Charlie Cameron one. There's a Froggy Lester one coming as well. So we'll post that link again on our socials and our website. The link's available at our website if you want to check that out. James Collins with the Ice Dancers Premiership t-shirts are fantastic.
Beautiful stuff. I guess next week we're going to have a more fun football to talk about. I mean, it was pretty fun anyway, but just talking about all these guys dying from knee injuries is less good. We didn't even mention Tom Duday and that. And
Yeah, I
whatever.
know, it still feels weird.
Also didn't mention Kadeen Coleman in the first game because I think that's just the collective trauma. We didn't want to touch it. So, yes, next week will be more fun games to review and more insane trade schemes to go through. Hopefully less Adam Cooney. But, yeah, said it before, trade time can go and fuck itself.